So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm welcome to the London Produce Show and this particular session about introducing the opportunities for UK trade. And yes, I know there's something called Brexit, but that doesn't mean to say we can't trade with each other. So, my name is Nigel, Jenney, Chief Executive of Fresh Produce Consortium. So, in essence, we are the trade association that represents the UK industry. When I say the UK industry, that's the industry that actually trades and in essence sells fresh produce in the UK, regardless of where the product is grown. So, from an industry point of view, how big is the industry? What are the opportunities? In fruit and veg terms, the UK market is around about 9 million tonnes. So a substantial market. If you look at that in context, as various parts of the world have their initiatives about healthy eating, that's 9 million tonnes on the consumption of 3 portions a day. The UK government's target is 5, so there's a great opportunity for the market to grow. In terms of the balance, in terms of the overall market, it's around about 50-50, but you've got the slide, so you'll see the exact numbers, so it's roughly 50-50 fruit and vegetables. For those that are possibly interested in trading internationally with the UK, substantial proportion of the total is imported. 6 million of that 3 million tonnes is imported from somewhere else in the world. So it's a significant opportunity to trade. Putting that in context and in balance, we then look at the UK position. So in essence, if you've done the maths as I've been going through this, we actually grow ourselves around about 30% of the fresh produce we consume in the UK. And while we do export, we export very, very modest amounts of very specific products from time to time. And the other thing that I think is important to understand in the changing world, even when we grow produce in the UK, such as tomatoes, cucumbers, strawberries, even top fruits, those young trees or young plants are actually produced somewhere in Europe and then planted in the UK and grown on to produce that fruit. So that's a very fundamental part of our trading relationship. As I mentioned, from an import point of view, combination of 2 sources. In essence, Europe, substantial volume, both around 3 million tonnes, and from the rest of the world, also around 3 million tonnes. And it's important that those trading relationships of some kind are maintained and developed, otherwise our sector does have a major challenge. So put it in a league table, in terms of, from a European point of view, who is our largest supplier of fresh produce? Well, there you have the top 10. If you don't happen to be from one of those countries, well then I apologise, but that just highlights the fantastic opportunity that you may have. And I suppose what we should do, though, is just celebrate. Do you have any people from Spain in the audience this afternoon? Fantastic, can't you two? I know you are. So there you go, top of the league table. That never happens in Spanish football, does it? Look at it that way. And then from beyond the EU, you can see the top 10 again. So South Africa, I won't do the same to the South Africans in the room, that's okay. But again, I think what you have there is that what does the future hold? The future holds change. I don't know what change will be, but it will be change. From a flower point of view, not forgetting flowers, if any of you are involved in that sector, we are a major importer. We import far more flowers in percentage terms than we do fresh produce. We only produce about 10% of the flowers we enjoy in the UK are produced in the UK. So the rest of the world is a major provider, either directly, but predominantly via sources such as points of arrival through Holland. So there's another challenge for the future. Where is the UK economy at the moment? Well, you know, the recent decision of a couple of years ago has encouraged some uncertainty. However, as consumers, we only spend around about 10% of our disposable income on fresh produce. So in relative terms, it's modest. Economic terms, we've got 2 issues really. The changing value of the pound has put material pressure on a number of things that we all choose to buy as consumers, including fresh produce. The general trend, if you're hearing that we're going to become a land of self-sufficiency, we're not, because we don't have the land base or the ability to produce a large number of the products that UK consumers choose to enjoy. We also have a position of, yes, you will hear that many people want to buy British, and they do, but that has to be under clear criteria of the quality of the product, but the price also has to be competitive. Mentioned at the bottom, these are very general statistics, but if anything does change from a world trade agreements, in other words, would you to import to the UK subject to negotiations with third countries, a different tariff, a different duty, whatever language you want to use, the average position is a percentage is behind me, 5 or 6%. For some products, worst case, it could be considerably more. Again, let's just look at the overall marketplace about who could your potential customers be. Yes, you will all know lots of high street names in terms of multiple retailers, and I would welcome you to trade with those if you wish, but don't ignore the very substantial wholesale and food service sector in our country. It's substantial. 35–40% of all fresh produce in volume is being sold through those outlets. So a hotel like we're in this afternoon. Very capable businesses. There are something like 500 wholesalers and food service companies around the company. So there are some great contacts that you may want to build your UK relationship with. Okay, well, from a Brexit point of view, what do we need? Well, basically, we need some answers. That's what it says there by clarity. In essence, from an industry point of view, I would simply say no change, business as usual. But it won't be business as usual. There will be change. What we are concerned about is the potential impacts of those change in terms of cost, delays, and quality of the products we wish to produce. And again, from a UK point of view, if I'm a UK packer or UK grower, I now have a major problem sourcing labour to grow my crops and harvest my crops. Repeal bill going through the Parliament at the moment. In essence, what that will say is cross EU out, put UK. So the legislation will just be broadly, not absolutely, but broadly transposed into what EU legislation you may be currently aware of. But we need continuity. We need continuity as an industry, and we need some clarity of what target do we have to meet, and then we can begin to organise our businesses accordingly. And it's unlikely that any changes from EU legislation that are transposed into UK will have any changes for a number of years to come. As I've already said, transition is important. All of those things are important. We then move on to what we do from a business and an organisation point of view. We've done a considerable amount in lobbying for the concerns and needs of our sector, but we have to continue to do more. And what I would say is, you may think Brexit is a UK issue. Yes, I know how the UK voted, but this is an international issue. As an industry, we can lobby UK governments, we can lobby the Commission and elsewhere. But for those of you from around Europe or elsewhere in the world, I would encourage you to lobby your governments to make sure that your country is getting the best possible deal through this process. In terms of other options, and there's other speakers who talk to you in a few minutes, but there are ongoing challenges in what we need to do, either from a food quality, but also from a biosecurity point of view. And Richard will talk about plant health and other things in a few minutes. But they are things you need to be aware of. They won't change in the short term because of Brexit, and there are some meaningful changes on their way. Other regulations, 669, high-risk regulations, you may be aware of those things. Not going to go into that detail, but there are a number of elements of regulations that do impact on trading fresh produce that you do need to be aware of. Well, that actually is a very quick summary from me, because I'm conscious there are other speakers that will go into much more detail. So I hope that gives you a very brief introduction to the UK market opportunity, and actually encourage you to reflect more closely of how you can build your stronger or strong trading relationships. So thank you for that. I'm not sure if there are any questions at this time. I'm happy to take any. Fantastic. We can move on to the next speaker then, if I may. So